Hey, and welcome back to Beorn's tent. Speaking of which, that's the subject of this episode, my tent. And showing you how we set up this particular piece. It's been a while since I've done this, and I'm doing it in preparation for a camping trip next week, so I thought it would be kind of fun to relearn it through filming an instructional video on how to do it. Might be rusty, but my memory will come right back once I open this thing again. It's not that hard. The only tricky thing is, at least the first time I tried setting it up, the tricky thing was making sure that it would stay stable. But it shouldn't be a problem this time. And a bunch of people these days probably don't see a tent like this anymore, so I'm sure it'll be interesting for you, them, too. Remember how I said the problem I had before was about keeping this thing stable when I set it up? Well, that wasn't the only problem. Actually, the bigger problem for me before was folding it up tight enough so that I could actually get it back in the bag. So, see, that's why I don't use typical sleeping bags. I just use a fleece one, which is basically a fold-up blanket with a zipper on the side. Much less complicated. Now, this tent is a triangle on either side, so make sure when you're unfolding it, you have to make sure you know which way is up. So that's a little window, and that's the tent entrance. See? Got a zipper there and everything. So regardless of what kind of tent you have, when you lay it out, you gotta make sure you know where the corners are and that you're laying it out wide enough so that way when you do peg it down and that when it's done, it'll be able to lay flat on the ground. Okay, make sure when you're planting the tent to the ground with your pegs that you stick the pegs in the ground diagonally and that the hook is facing away from the tent, because that way it won't just slip. And when you do the other side, you do the same thing. Alright, before you put your second peg in, give this corner a tug, so that way you know that the first peg is planted down properly. And so that way, when you plant this in, there'll be enough tension on it so it'll stay straight. Well, you can only go so straight on a dirt ground like this, but just make sure you pull it. See, now I'm going by the long ends. Back here. So, do the same thing, give it a tug, make sure that the other pegs are planted, and then just stick the peg right here in the ground, again facing diagonally and away from the tent. Alright, this is the last peg, so you've got all the other ones planted. Give it that tug to make sure. It helps to pull on it with the peg in the loop, so that way you can just stick it right in the ground from there. There. This ain't going anywhere unless I tell it to. This is what we get to work with next. The support poles. So both poles come in 3 pieces. This one is the one that goes on the ground, and this piece is the one that's going to hold up the tent. Because there's a little grommet at the top corner, or the peak of the tent, and so I'm going to put this one in here, in the middle. You put this one on top, and you've got yourself a post. Do the same thing with the other side. You'll be good to go. You'll be ready to set up that peak. helps to stick it into the grommet first, and then pull it up. See, this is where it gets tricky. You gotta make sure that this thing will stay up. Like I said, it's like I'm having to learn this thing all over again. Take a look when we set up the other side. And besides, it's not just the other pole that you have to set up either. There's 2 ropes on either side, or 1 rope on either side, 2 ropes altogether, that are supposed to keep the walls up. Now I remember what the issue is with this. Okay, see, in addition to those 2 ropes on the sides, there's a couple of other ropes. And these 2 pegs. So what you're supposed to do, it turns out, is you stick one of the loops on this rope to the top of the pole. And then you plant one of these pegs in the ground, and you tighten this rope around it. Can't believe I forgot about that. How else could it stay up? Learn something new every day, don't you? Well, let this be a lesson if you're ever interested in getting an old-fashioned tent like this. Now, I don't want the loop of this thing to slip off the pole, so what I'm gonna do is take this out, put the loop of rope here, and then stick the spike here back in the grommet. Okay, so I've got the peg in here. I'm pulling the loop. Now, you don't want to have too much tension on this, because otherwise you'll just pull the tent over. So, okay, the pole is standing straight up, and this peg is still facing diagonally away from the tent. Not exactly taut as a bowstring, but it'll serve the purpose. Hopefully the other side does too. There we go. Now it's looking straight. I imagine some people probably use a hammer to stick these things in the ground, but I just don't feel like it. Now we've got these 2 ropes on the sides. So that way, on the inside, especially, it'll be wider. So, same thing, you pull it, give it just a little bit of, just enough tension. You don't want to yank on it, but you just want it to be kind of taut. I think the ground is a little softer over here, so this shouldn't be an issue. Yep. Here we go. And there we have it. Kind of nice in here, isn't it? Pretty roomy. I hope you've enjoyed this unique episode of Beorn's Tent, and hope to see you in Wilderland very, very soon. Pretty sure it's a 2-person tent, so it's definitely got enough room for it. Actually, I'm not sure if it was made specifically as a 2-person tent or a 1-person tent. And you gotta do it, very... Sorry for the interruptions, let me say that again. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed, or at least gotten curious and interested. That's not right. Before you lay your second peg down, give this part, give it a tug. That. Inside and outside the scenes of Beorn's tent. Hopefully I'll see you soon. I am just trailing, just going off track. Okay, I'm not gonna do it with my boot. I can't quite control what direction it goes in when I just kick it. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Beorn's Tent, and hope to see you in, well, can't get this right. Okay, almost got it.